All right, thanks, Michael. And thank you, HotelSpaces, for having me. Really appreciate being here. It's nice to be back on a stage in a room with people giving talks again. Feels really good, although I haven't done it in a couple of years, so I might be rusty. So Meow Wolf. So yeah, we started Meow Wolf back in 2008, and I'll kind of go through the history of how we got to where we are. And over that period of time, from 2008 until now, there's been a lot of thinking around like why is it that this works? Why is it that people want to go inside of a Meow Wolf and come back 4 or 5 times, and why does it get such good reviews? So that's a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, is like the nature of the experience and why I think it works. But to start off, Meow Wolf has a mission. And that mission is to inspire creativity in people's lives in hopes that the imagination will transform our world. And it's a simple one-liner, but it has, the word transform is the most important kind of piece here, and that's what I'm going to be focusing a lot on, is transformation and what that means and how transformation comes to be in people's lives and why it's so important. We just opened our exhibit in Denver. It's a 90,000 square foot building that fits in between I-25 and Colfax, rises above the interstate. It's a new build specifically for Meow Wolf, and it's a totally unprecedented project. I mean, a lot of people in this room I know have a sense of this, of like what it means to build big buildings. And this one is just ridiculous. When you go and visit it, you're like, why? How did this happen? Why does this exist? We just opened this about a month ago. We sold 100,000 tickets in the first 24 hours, and we've since, in the first month, sold 300,000 tickets to the exhibit at about $45 a head. But it wasn't always like this for us. Back in 2008, we were a bunch of artists in Santa Fe, New Mexico, kind of seeing how Santa Fe was as a city, and also looking at our own lives as a bunch of 20-year-olds, and just asking ourselves, like, how can we express ourselves, and how can we put it out into the world? How can we like push through where we are today and move into like the possibility of tomorrow? And we are all artists and event producers and creatives of some sort. And so the best way that we knew how was to basically start a music venue / art gallery and just start making stuff and kind of leverage art and creativity and events to kind of push through whatever barriers we were feeling as millennials or as residents of this, affluent town, Santa Fe, and just start expressing ourselves. We were kind of tired of waiting for people to invite us into their spaces. We were like, okay, we're just going to start our own space. But we had no money. We were all just working like restaurant jobs, working at hotels. I was a night auditor forever. And so we just pulled materials out of dumpsters and started using whatever materials we could find to create art exhibitions. Ultimately, they're like forts that we were building, like taking over this, old aluminum building and then just building these weird forts out of whatever materials we could find. And then inviting the public into these exhibitions. And, people were crawling around in spaces that were disgusting and they probably shouldn't have been crawling around in. But this was our expression. And we started to understand like the nature of immersive art. What is immersive art? Back in 2008, it wasn't really a term. There were a couple people out in the world doing it, but it wasn't really a term that was being used. So we're kind of exploring this new medium of surrounding people inside of an environment. We did that for like 7 years, to varying successes, some bigger projects. But then it got to a point where like what was something that was like a passion project for a bunch of 20-year-olds actually became quite the obligation for 30-year-olds. And we're like, why are we spending all of our time and all of our money on this thing that drains us and doesn't bring any money back in return? And so I basically was like, well, we need to go big, and we need to do something permanent. And we need to like turn it into an actual business and start selling tickets to our experiences. So we found this site. This is an old bowling alley in Santa Fe. It's 30,000 square feet, rundown part of town. The bowling alley was derelict for like 7 years. And we found this space. I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. I was walking around with a real estate agent, and the real estate agent's like, all right, let's buy it. I said, yeah, let's buy it. It's like, well, how much money do you got? I was like, I got none, man, literally nothing. I have no money. He's like, how much money does Meow Wolf have? We have no money, man. There's no money. He's like, well, who do you know who might have money? I was like, well, I know George R.R. Martin, the author of Game of Thrones. Maybe I could ask him. He was my boss at a movie theater in Santa Fe. I was like a marketing guy for him. And so I wrote George, and I was like, hey, George, there's this old bowling alley. Would you be down to buy it? Meow Wolf could do something crazy in there, and I think it could be a big success. He was like, well, sure. So we essentially, after a few months of talking to him, George ended up buying the bowling alley, and we then went on like a crazy, year and a half process of raising capital and learning what it meant to be a business, going to investors, and in March of 2016, we opened our first permanent exhibition, the House of Eternal Return. It's like immersive art experience meets storytelling experience inside of a large 30,000 square foot space. And we opened, we didn't know exactly like what the kind of response was going to be. It had never really been done before. Charging like $25 tickets, and people would buy their ticket, they walk in, and the first space that they see is this, they end up in this like front yard of a Victorian house. The Victorian house takes place in Mendocino, California, even though the exhibit's in Santa Fe, New Mexico, but they're walking into a house that exists in Mendocino, California. And they walk up, and they can basically, from this point forward, go in any direction that they want. They can go left, they can go right, they can go through the backyard, through the side doors. Most people walk in right through the front door. And then once they're inside the house, they can then explore, what this house is all about, who lived here, what's the story, what's going on. You can start to see there's some like wonkiness to this house, like there's some clues that like something has happened. But you can like learn about the family, their kids, the weird uncle that sleeps on the couch. Go upstairs, go into the bedrooms, go through drawers, journals, home movies, photo albums, and just kind of dig in, kind of like everybody's, secret voyeur like, fantasies of like going through a house and just like learning about who lives there. And then you get to the fridge, and you open the fridge, and you realize that it's actually not a fridge, that it's some portal, secret passageway portal to another dimension. Or maybe you go to the dryer, and you open the dryer, and you realize that that's like a little portal into another dimension. And we quickly learned that oftentimes I say that like Meow Wolf learned one key thing through this, and that's that people have a secret desire to go through their household appliances. And I think it's true. Like, we say it as a joke, but it's actually kind of true, and it's kind of a perfect metaphor for what I'm talking about in this presentation, which is like everybody grows up with the same fridge. Everybody grows up with the same washer and dryer. Our houses look very similar. And as a kid, you're like, is this all we have? Is this it? This is reality? Like, isn't there something more? Isn't there something beyond this kind of standardization? There's got to be something more. And so we kind of play into that with the fridge and the dryer. And then once you go through these portals, then you're like in let me go back one. Then you're in like a whole nother world. So this is the space that you go to when you go through the refrigerator. And then this is the space you go to when you go through the dryer. And this is like 15,000 square feet of just like wild, immersive art that takes really good pictures and is really fun to explore. And you can go in all sorts of directions. There's musical instruments embedded into all of this. So like those stalagmites are musical instruments. You have about 8 or 10 different tones per stalagmite. There's like a kind of dinosaur bones in the background. You can see in those, like you can play the bones like a marimba. And it's just like room after room after room of art. Fully soundtracked. And it really kind of just provides a space for people that is like obviously it takes good pictures, So that's like, it's the Instagram, selfie museum type of thing. But it's even more than that. Like what we try to do is we try to create spaces for people that make them feel like they're literally in another world. And I'll get into more like the power of that here in a second. We worked with about, 150 artists on this project. Took us about a year and a half to build. And when we opened it, like I said, we didn't know how it was going to do. We thought maybe 100,000 people a year. That would have made it the most successful museum in all of Santa Fe, and Santa Fe is a pretty big art market. And so we were pretty happy with 100,000 people per year. But then what ended up happening was we got 500,000 people in our first year. And it was people of all sorts of backgrounds, like people who've never stepped foot in a gallery before, people who've never stepped foot in a museum before, never actually felt like even welcome to step foot in the gallery, people who, of all ages, like 8-year-olds going in and loving it, 80-year-olds going in and loving it, all having their own experience, all having their own transformative time with the House of Eternal Return. And it was crazy. We had to figure out how do we operate a place like this? 500,000 people, as lines down the street. Good problem to have. It was named one of the top 50 things to do in the world by Time Out. We got tons of press. PBS NewsHour and Today Show and New York Times and Forbes and NPR, just everybody talking about what is this thing in Santa Fe, the House of Eternal Return. And then you had these reviews coming through on Yelp and on Google Reviews that were just astonishing. And so the one on the bottom right-hand corner from Hannah McMahon, I went a few years ago and it's life-changing. And we were hearing this over and over again, life-changing. It changed my life. It was transformative. And at this point, I was CEO at the time, and I was thinking, what is it that we're doing that's life-changing? Because I want to know what that secret sauce is so that I can keep doing it. And so I really started to dig into what is the experience that people are having inside of Meow Wolf that makes it life-changing. And so I got to know Joseph Pine, who wrote this essay, The Experience Economy, wrote it back in the 90s, kind of predicting the future of the economy, the future evolution of the economy, and started to kind of dig into what the experience economy was all about. And for those who don't know, it's basically there's an evolution to the economy. Started off first a commodity, then went to good, then went to services, then went to experience. You can kind of think about it take the coffee industry. Kind of went from coffee bean to then being ground and packaged, to then being brewed and served, to then being a coffee shop like Starbucks where, yeah, you're getting coffee, but you kind of actually just want to go to the coffee shop. You kind of just want the experience of going to the coffee shop. So that was kind of the evolution. And okay, we're definitely in that. We're definitely an experience. So we're that part of of this hierarchy. But that still didn't explain to us or explain to me what's life-changing. How does that fit in? So then I read that Joseph Pine had sort of amended his essay to add another level, which is that beyond experiences, there's transformation. That it's not just about people having experiences, it's about people feeling transformed by their experiences. And that this is the next stage of economy. And I was okay, cool, that's what we're doing, that's what's happening. So what is transformation? So I take this fridge moment as kind of a key moment in trying to understand what a transformation is for people and how it happens. The fridge represents what we know. It represents what has been. It represents predictability. The fridge is the fridge. We know what the fridge is. Everybody has had the same fridge. And when you open the fridge and you realize that it's not a fridge at all, in fact, it's a long hallway that leads into who knows where, you start to realize that possibility exists. That if the fridge can be different than what the fridge is supposed to be, then maybe the world can be different than what the world is supposed to be. And then even more powerfully, if the world can be different than what the world is supposed to be, then maybe I can be different than what I'm supposed to be. And that's kind of the power of, the transformative power of Meow Wolf, is that it's an environment that allows for people to be whatever they want to be. Their belief systems, their their identifiers that they have out in the real world don't really matter inside of Meow Wolf, inside of a crazy immersive space like this. So they're kind of given the freedom to be whatever they want. Ultimately, it starts with agency. So when people walk into a Meow Wolf, we don't give them a map. We don't give them a guide. We don't tell them which way to go. We don't tell them what type of experience they're supposed to have. Yeah, there's a story, but you don't have to follow the story if you don't want. Yeah, there's tree houses, but you don't have to play on them like they're a playground. You can do whatever you want inside of Meow Wolf. You can go left, right, up, down, whatever. That's really important. And so many operators, especially of attractions, don't understand this. They put people into stages. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And all around in the consumer world, this is kind of how it is. Rarely do people have total freedom to do whatever they want inside of a space of commerce. And oftentimes people will even come, they'll go into the front yard of the house and they'll say, "What am I supposed to do?" And one of our docents will be like, "Whatever you want." And it's hard for them to even reconcile that they have choice, that they have agency in this moment. Most operators, most people starting a business, most people opening up some type of attraction or hospitality experience would be really scared of their customers not knowing what they're supposed to do. And that makes sense. Most people are from the 80s and 90s, before we had the internet. And so it's a different world now, and I'll kind of get into that here in a second. Agency ends up leading to this feeling of empowerment. I can do whatever I want. What people do with that empowerment is they then explore. What they do with exploration is they ultimately discover. And that exploration and discovery piece is the magic. That's what's transformative for folks, is that they're able to explore and discover within an environment that's unlike anything else out in the world. And a really key thing about exploration and discovery is that it can only happen within the presence of the unknown, within an environment of the unknown. If you're in a known environment, exploration and discovery don't happen because it's already known. There's nothing to explore. There's nothing to discover. So if the magic is exploration and discovery, then you also have to have the courage to create unknown environments in order for that to occur. And that's what Meow Wolf is. It's one giant unknown environment. And this is largely opened up because, I think, of the internet. When the internet came around, we got agency, first and foremost, to find whatever content we want at any time. It wasn't flipping through cable news television. It wasn't going through the prescribed releases, at the theater. It was us being able to choose what kind of content we wanted by our own choice. And also, when we started to do that, we also wanted to start to find content that was unprecedented, content that was unknown. You don't flip through Facebook or flip through Instagram or flip through TikTok trying to find stuff that you've seen before. You do it to try to find stuff that you've never seen before. So the digital world has done an amazing job, thanks to trillions of dollars of investments over the last 30 years, of filling up our phones with content that is explorable and discoverable and within the context of the unknown. Once you put your phone in your pocket and you get out here and you walk in a hotel like this, or you walk through a strip mall, or you walk through any sort of physical location, it's all known. It's all predictable. It's all been done before. You've seen it before. There's no exploration. There's no discovery. And that's why people are on their phones all the time. I oftentimes say, don't blame the phones for why people want to be on their phones all the time. Try to get the physical world to be more interesting. Get more better content out in the physical world. It's not the phone's fault. And that's the thing. Out in the physical world, it's all copy-paste. It's all predictable. There's no exploration and discovery in this picture. If I've seen it once, I've seen it 1,000 times. Whether it's the look, the facades, the shapes, the actual stores themselves, There's nothing original here. Best Buy is a good example. If I walk into a Best Buy in Albuquerque, it's the same Best Buy I walk into in Amarillo. It's like, there's a functional purpose. I'm going to go to Best Buy and buy a charger. But like, other than the functional, there's no other reason for me to go. But then it goes even deeper than just like the knownness of the physical world. It's actually the knownness of our own identity that Meow Wolf gets to open people up. Think about kids. Like, kids enter this world and the entire world is unknown. So it's constant exploration and discovery for kids, constant. And they're spirited. Like, within there's possibility. Within exploration and discovery, there's possibility, and that possibility makes us feel like we're alive. It brings joy to us and makes us excited for what the future could hold. But then over our lifetime, we then build this crazy apparatus known as identity that tells us everything that we like, everything that we like, everything that we do, the way that we talk, the way that we engage, the types of foods we eat, the way we drive home. It's all a set of rules, this massive apparatus of knowability that then, what does it do? It kills our spirit. It kills that feeling that the world is possible. It kills exploration. It kills discovery. And then when we have to like actually take some steps to try to break that apparatus of identity, you can do it through meditation or, other things. But we then work to try to break down this identity that we've created just so that we can feel like the future might be possible again. But ultimately, experiences are like one of the best opportunities for people to be able to venture into an unknown environment and be sparked by the spirit of life. And that's kind of where we've come in. These are pictures from Las Vegas and Denver, the two most recent exhibits. This one I really love. This one's an artist named Claudia Bueno. This stunning, stunning piece at Meow Wolf Las Vegas called Pulse. I think it's the best piece that's been released this year anywhere in the world. It's really quite stunning. We've taken the production level of Meow Wolf up to a whole nother level. These projects now cost in the 50 million plus range. Working with hundreds of artists, folks like Brian Eno or Beach House or Android Jones or Alex Gray, like really well-known artists are working on these projects now as well. This one's called Omega Mart. Kind of take the idea of a grocery store and flip it on its head. Vegas will probably do about 1.2 million people in its first 12 months. And then you have Denver. I'll get to some Denver pictures. This one just opened last month. Stunning, stunning exhibit. I mean, just unbelievable. 5 floors, multiple elevation changes, so many rooms, so many ups and downs. Like, you get lost. I've been in there like 10 times. I still don't know my way around very well. This is like a 40-foot tall cathedral that we built inside of the Denver one. And the dome, there's like a wheel inside of the cathedral, and you can go up to the wheel, and you can turn the wheel, and the dome up top starts to spin. And this space is really quite stunning. This is the most complex thing that we've ever built. It's called Knowness. And Knowness has this 40-foot tall sculpture that you can go in at multiple levels called the Cosmohedron. It's wild space, big space. I think it's like 4 floors. And yeah, like, you can create immersive art for the sake of like a social share, for the sake of somebody like taking a picture with their friends and then share it on Facebook, be like, yeah, tag your business. And that will get you a certain amount of return. But being able to create a transformational experience for someone, the level of word of mouth that comes from it, the level of loyalty that comes from it is a return beyond belief. I have this picture here of the Atari hotels just because when I think about like hotels that are really thinking about creating transformational experiences for people, this one comes to mind. And, really trying to take, be a post-internet experience, an experience that is beyond what people can get on the internet, and doing it within a location-based hospitality expression. So I'm excited to see what happens with the Atari hotels. It's more than just about the selfie, it's not just the selfie. So I wanted to just really, at the end here, just talk a little bit more about Omega Mart and kind of give a sense of some of the finances behind it and just how wild it is. So Omega Mart is a grocery store. It's about 5,000 square feet. And behind Omega Mart's doors is another 25,000 square feet of all those crazy immersive spaces that I showed. But the store itself is 5,000 square feet, and it's stocked full of, 300 products that are all fake products that we created, but they're real too. We actually got them manufactured, and they're on the store shelves, and you can actually buy them. And the really weird aspect of the economics here is that not only does our grocery store charge $40 a head to even enter it to begin with, and we're going to get 1.2 million people coming in, but then it's also doing 3 times more sales of actual grocery store products per square foot than the average Walgreens does. So, and those are actual just waters and sodas and toilet paper and laundry detergent and deodorant. They're just normal. So in thinking about the types of experiences that people, and the reason why I brought this up is just when you, as hoteliers, the people in the hotel industry, it's expensive to build the Tesla of hotels, not just the Toyota Camrys. It's expensive. You're going to spend $2,000 a square foot on some of these spaces. That's what we spend. It's expensive. But you can also create a space that the economics aren't just about the overnight stay, that people are actually willing to spend $40, $45 a head to just enter the space to begin with, whether or not they even stay overnight. And to just think about your spaces as, it's kind of there's sort of this split where it's okay, if you want to be functional, be functional. If you don't want to be functional, then be way more. Be a creative experience, be a transformative experience. But choose one or the other, sort of. Because if people want to go to any experience outside of their house, they're going to be looking for transformation, and they're willing to pay for it. If it's the Tesla, they're willing to pay for it. So that's my presentation. That's Meow Wolf's story. We are actually, I thought I should throw this out there. We are actually looking to do a hotel at some point. So if anybody's interested, let's talk. We have started to do some concepting around what a Meow Wolf hotel might look like. And there's the functional Meow Wolf hotel that we're thinking about, but then there's also the the experiential side of it too. So yeah, I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hope it was nice.
Vince, I actually do like to do, I know we're going to, a little bit later on, there's an Ask Me Anything session outside for people that do want to ask some questions, but I think since we have you here and we have a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Questions? Let me bring it back to Hyatt over here.
Thanks, great presentation.
Thanks.
About 12 years ago, I took my kids to the City Museum in St. Louis and had that transformational experience that the woman mentioned. And all I kept thinking about being in design and construction is how'd they get this place permitted, So, and you guys took this to the next level. It was from the images. I haven't been to the place yet.
Yeah.
What about those sad realities of permitting and ADA? How do you guys get around all that?
Those are sad realities, aren't they? So City Museum, just real quick, before we started the House of Eternal Return, and we were kind of in an existential crisis a bit as an art collective, we didn't know which direction we were going to go. We traveled to St. Louis, and we went to City Museum, and the guy who runs it set up a meeting with us and just he opened his books for us and said, here's how much we make, here's how, it's a for-profit business, and it changed my life. The light bulb went off, and I was like, oh my gosh, we can actually we don't have to beg for money anymore. We can just build something that people are willing to pay for. And so City Museum is definitely kind of the godfather of all of this. Yeah, they didn't get permitted. And he even told us, he gave us bad advice, I think. He was like, don't ask for permission, just ask for forgiveness. Because that's pretty much what City Museum did. They built it first, and then when the city of St. Louis said, hey, this isn't a code, they'd already had a million people going through the doors every year. So they kind of leveraged the city. So on our side of it, though, we actually have had to build to code. And we've had to build to code in 2 of the toughest cities to do it. Vegas is you guys know, there's a book for everything. Every single thing that you want to try to do, there's a rule for it, and there's a book on it. So when we built in Vegas, it was incredibly tough, but we worked within code compliance to get it open. And then in Denver, it was kind of the opposite, where they didn't know, they had never seen anything like this before. So they were just having to double check everything. And so, yeah, it's part of the design. I mean, we are code compliant in all 3 of our cities, and it's a headache for sure. But you work through it. Lots of sprinkler heads in every tiny little space. In every tiny little space, sprinkler head.
Yep.
Hello. I was actually at the Omega Mart on Saturday, and it was amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really fun. I think what was super special is the fact that you go and you're not given any direction. You're not told how to experience it, and you watch thousands of people walk through and kind of create their own journey. It was awesome. But my question to you is, when and how exactly did you learn to clap your feet like that?
Oh, yeah. When I was 8 years old, I would just lay on my parents' bed and watch Saved by the Bell on my stomach and do all sorts of weird things with my feet. Yeah. He wasn't supposed to choose me, and he wasn't supposed to read my mind. That wasn't part of my plan last night. I hope y'all don't think less of me because of that. I literally went back to the bed, back to the hotel room, and was like, D, I think I totally screwed up, man. I was like, I'm supposed to be this professional, and I'm on this stage clapping my feet. What did I
do? So I have a question about Vegas versus Denver. Denver's a standalone facility, right?
Yeah.
And Vegas is part of a larger experiential location. I mean, how much of the success of Vegas perhaps is also because it's part of a bigger destination for a series of different experiences that you can. And by the way, I've been to the one in Vegas as well, and it is it's pretty amazing.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good question. Area 15, which is the building that the Vegas experience that Omega Mart is inside of, is awesome. It itself is awesome, and it's free. It's kind of like a mall, but just filled with experiences, and it's immersive art when you walk in, and it's cool. And yeah, we get a ton of just walk-up traffic just because people are already at Area 15. So a huge part of our success is because of the density of cool stuff at Area 15. And Winston Fisher, who runs Area 15, is one of our earliest investors in Meow Wolf and is also on the board of Meow Wolf and a good friend of mine. And talk about courage, that guy dreaming this up, doing it, and then seeing its success, and now looking to scale it across the country. But I think that density of experience, I think, is really has contributed a lot. The thing is, though, most likely, I mean, we'll see how it all plays out, but most likely the Denver exhibit, which is standalone, probably ends up selling more tickets in a 12-month period than Vegas will, most likely. I don't, probably just because the Denver hype has been so big for us. It's closer to Santa Fe, and I think a lot of Colorado residents have come. And also, Vegas is just such a tough market to crack, and the local residents are so tough to crack. We'll get, we're at 80% tourism, 20% local residents coming to Omega Mart, and just, it's just tough, as I'm sure many of you know. And there's a lot of other stuff to do. So, people have a lot of things that they can do in Vegas. And we're not on the Strip either, so it's we needed something like Area 15 to be a gravitational center for us.
Okay, I have 2 questions.
Okay.
The first one, how long does it take from kind of concepting it to building? And then the second, do you work on more than one of these at a time?
Yeah, so we worked on Vegas and Denver at the same time. and we opened Vegas in February and Denver in September. And for the past 4 years, we've been working on both. So we say that our length, if we were to just do one, the length would probably be like, from the time that we sign a lease to opening doors, something like 24 to 36 months. So it's a pretty big, pretty big leeway there. But the hope is that the company can scale to the point where we can be doing 4 or 5 at the same time, But getting that time down, just like with the intricacy of the interior build out and the amount of detail that is involved. We also work with a lot of local artists. It's important for us to, if we go into a market, that we do an RFP process with local artists, and that the large percentage of the space is filled by local artists, and so that just naturally is going to take time. So I think 2 to 3 years is probably the most likely sort of window for that.
Question. Can you talk a little bit about your personal transformation from trying to find TVs in a dumpster to a rock star CEO?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was. Thanks for that question. I don't think anybody's ever really asked me that. So back in the day when we first started Meow Wolf, I was the person who would call meetings, try to get everybody together. When we opened a show made out of trash, I would be the one who would make sure there's a cardboard box out that says donations on it, and nobody else was thinking about that. And I think that I quickly learned, I thought I was an artist, but then I quickly learned that my best value for the group was communication, using my words, bringing different types of people together, just kind of being an orchestrator of people through the power of language. And then that just kind of continued to evolve. And we had done so much work together as a group. We had accomplished so much and put so much energy and momentum into Meow Wolf that when it came time, for us to kind of consider our paths, I just could not give up on the belief that Meow Wolf could be something special. I just could not give up on it. I was so committed to it. And I'd always also been the person who was better at math, just kind of naturally. And so I started to just write down, literally back of napkin, all right, if we get this many people at this ticket price, how much could we make? How much do we think it would cost us? What would the profit be? And had a general sense of a business plan for what the House of Eternal Return could be. And I never went to business school. Didn't go to college. Grew up very modestly in Santa Fe as a convicted shoplifter. I had no future. I think that was also a driving force for me. Was I was now 33, 34 years old without a college education, waiting tables to try to pay rent and no health insurance or anything like that. And so I was kind of in this place where it's it's got to be Meow Wolf. That's got to be the thing that takes us to another place. And so I got the chance to go to a startup accelerator called Creative Startups. And at Creative Startups, it was a light bulb just totally went off for me. Mainly around the concept of debt, because I had grown up basically thinking debt was the devil. I was stay away from debt, you don't want to get into debt. But then when I realized debt is actually a really good thing, that people will lend you money so that you can build something that will make even more money, and then they get paid back with a return, and then you get to keep the rest. I was what? That makes total sense. Okay, cool, we got this. So I just very quickly started picking up business terms, and I was so anti-capitalist for growing up. I just didn't want to have anything to do with money. And then, but I understood that money's not the evil. Money's just money. Greed, okay, maybe greed's the evil. Maybe how we value things, that's evil, but the money itself isn't. And when I finally was able to kind of reconcile all that and learn the business terms, it just took off, it just took off for me. And I realized, I always thought, I grew up thinking I was just some sort of criminal or some sort of rebel that was never going to amount to anything. And then after I did Creative Startups, I realized I was an entrepreneur. I was oh, I'm an entrepreneur. Okay, got it. But yeah, it's wild. And then having, then opening the house and having to operate it and then think even bigger and do Vegas and Denver and then close a I closed a $150 million Series A round of capital that like nearly killed me. And it was at that time where I realized like I'm in over my head and I need to step down. Like I've made really big promises that I don't think I can keep as the person in charge of this company. So I made 3 really awesome hires and kind of handed the keys off to them, stayed on the board, but it's been a wild process, like wildly transformative process. Thanks for asking. Yeah.
Vince, I saw you post a video about the Van Gogh experience.
Yeah.
This is a mic on here.
Yeah.
And you were talking, I thought it was interesting, so you were talking about the price of the ticket. It was $40, same thing as Omega Mart. When you look at those experiences now that are kind of scaling up, I think it's like in almost every market now, the interactive Van Gogh experience. Do you think that you're underpricing the Meow Wolf experience?
I think we're underpricing the Meow Wolf experience, yeah. But, I think like in Vegas and in Denver, Denver especially, but I think it's, it might be smart, like start a little bit lower, get a lot of locals in there, kind of have it be beloved, and, and then you can see how capacity is and then increase from there. But yeah, like Denver to me or Denver and Vegas are both like, globally significant exhibitions that should probably be in the $65, $75 range. We probably won't get there, like, because we don't want to create a gate for people like that. Like, we don't want to be Disneyland and start just increasing every year and getting up to $200 a ticket or something. And so we're kind of battling that a little bit, But the hope, though, is that the consumer can start to learn the difference between like a Van Gogh and a Meow Wolf. And maybe Van Gogh should be more at like $20, that's probably where it should be. But, we're early in this industry, so it's kind of like, it's kind of hard to tell where it'll go.